What's going on, Valhalla Group? I got a very special guest tonight going on for you guys. My guest tonight is Will Owens. Y'all might know him from being infamously in that documentary Shadow Company. Well, Will's done a lot more than just be a one-stop pump in a Shadow Company. He's done multiple contracts, and even before that, he was a scout sniper in the Marine Corps. And despite doing everything between contracting and honorable military service, Will's got another mission right now, and that's to run across the United States to raise money for PTSD and suicide awareness and help some people. And that's what I said, guys. He's running across the United States. He's got a GoFundMe set up. He's a fitness guru, chiseled by the Greek gods himself. And I'm lucky enough to have him on this show just to talk about his experiences from military to contracting to what's the next objective for him. So without further ado, Will Owens.
Hey, how's it going, Patrick? Yeah, as you said, I'm a former Marine, 0311 in Scout Sniper Platoon. I was in prior to 9/11. 9/11 took place, and it kind of re-sparked that patriotic cause for me. I was lucky enough to have a friend who worked for a company at that time, Blackwater, and asked me if I was interested in going over and serving on some of their security details. I did, and much of my life I just kind of was at the right place at the right time, and threw myself into it. Worked on multiple contracts, and as you said, as you mentioned earlier, I was on one of the contracts that was ultimately in a book called License to Kill by Robert Young Pelton, and he documented our time running back and forth along Route Irish from the Green Zone to the BIOP. And some of his research for his book ended up in a movie called Shadow Company. And that research got spliced up and ultimately was conveyed in a different way than it actually happened, just to fit the agenda of the documentary company. And that was definitely a negative light for me as well as other contractors. Anyway, I moved on from that. I did several other contracts kind of bouncing around, some with different companies, and then also with some private contracts with buddies that gained some around the world. Right now, I over the last year kind of had some issues, felt myself struggling with some survivor's remorse. There was a picture of myself and 3 other teammates, and all the guys in that picture except myself either died overseas or through natural causes, and it just kind of left me to start to question why I'm still around, and I wasn't living up to my fullest potential. Pretty much a shitbag. So with the help of a lot of friends and a project called Save a Warrior, I got my stuff together and kind of came up with this idea to run across the U.S. From San Diego to Virginia Beach in 47 days. So I'd like to do it in 43, but 47 is the timeline. 43 kind of is symbolic because that's the number of Blackwater individuals who've been killed in combat or in the line of duty. 47 also is the cohort that I went through with Save a Warrior. So yeah, I'm on Instagram. Run RUN2X2 Vets. My GoFundMe is there. All my funding will go towards Save a Warrior Project.
I'll definitely be sure to bump all those when we post this. I think it's amazing for a younger guy like me, not only as a Marine, but just as someone who is currently contracting, and even though I'm not doing PSD teams and whatnot, there's an awe and a celebrity of Blackwater. And I think it's amazing to talk to someone who was essentially one of the, I won't say a founding member of it, but the first wave of when it came to know. Because I believe Blackwater has been, when it was originally created by Mr. Prince, it was up for, like in the 97, 98, it was just doing the school shootings. Like they were training the SWAT teams, and
Correct.
then from there, it went to, obviously OEF kicked off. There was this need and a void, and they, say what you want about Mr. Prince and his politics. The guy's a smart guy, and he filled that void for the United States government. So it's always a great pleasure to talk to anyone from that era. With that being said, do you now, years later, do you have, when you're walking around town, or if you talk to someone, you kind of get that look of, oh, you're Blackwater, you're obviously, because there's always a negative connotation of 2007 with the square shooting. Do people kind of relate you to that, like, in an unfair manner?
Definitely. It's probably not as much, just because I'm probably not as vocal about just what I do or what I did to a lot of people. But one incident I can recall vividly was it was really right after the Nazareth Square incident, maybe within months, and I was at a diplomatic dinner, or a dinner with several diplomats in Cambodia, and one of the U.S. diplomats started to speak negatively about it, and I kind of chummed in, and I told her, it's when you're in an area that the only thing that you know is on your side is the U.S. Army or military, and your Blackwater brothers. Everything is a threat, and there's no way I can get you to understand that unless you put yourself in that situation. And we kind of talked about it, and eventually she understood that there's that old saying, rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6, or carried by 12 than judged by, or whatever the saying is. Yeah. Not the best at math, I guess. But eventually, but it's still, until you walk a mile in those shoes. I'm full of old sayings here today. Walk a mile in my shoes, you don't really understand. And I think that's hard for a lot of people to grasp. They still see Blackwater, because Blackwater became, synonymous with security in general, or security contractors in general, as these evil guys who were solely in for the money. And I can honestly tell you, when I started out, and even when I ended, I don't think I ever met a guy or gal who was contracting for money. The first purpose they did it for was because they loved what they do, and it was their patriotic duty. And then, of course, yes, the money did make it better, but they would have done it, had it been at the salary of a E4, E5, I'm sure 99% of the people would have still done it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The money obviously now isn't that great, and guys are still filling the void, because one, I think it's the perfect transitional job for, and I waited 2 years because I didn't know how to get into contracting, and then if I could go back, I would have went as soon as I EAS'd. But I think it's the perfect transitional job, for someone from whatever service you were in to go into a paramilitary organization in which there is structure but freedom all at the same time to, okay, let me put, even if you make, the K-Boss contract, it's hard work and hard labor, but throw $65K at you real quick as a 22, 23-year-old, that's a lot of money to just kind of chill and be like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? Do I want to consider going back overseas? Do I want to relax? Do I want to go to school? Like, it just gives a lot of guys and gals a lot of freedom. And I definitely recommend, as many veterans, if you don't know what you want to do, instead of going to community college for a minute, go take that contract somewhere, man, and, see the world a little bit and put 30, 40, 50K in your bank account.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you. I mean, and, the way things are set up now, you can do a class online while you're working overseas. Work on that degree, and still put money in your pocket and have a GI Bill. I mean that GI Bill, it'll last a long time. Use it for something that you know what you want.
Well, there was I know you were with dropping names, Dynacore in Kosovo. That's a perfect contract to do that at. I know a lot of the guys and gals over there are doing college, and they'll go there, they'll finish their degrees. They're making, the money isn't crazy good, but it's still enough to where you can pocket it, and then you spend a couple of years there, a year or two there, and then you leave with a decent amount of credits, possibly a degree, and you're in the green in your bank account, and you got to see that part of Europe. So a lot of people talk smack about that contract, but if you're trying to do some build yourself as a person, it's not a bad spot. And I think a lot of contracts are like that,
Definitely. I totally agree with you. That was one of the reasons I jumped on that one. I actually finished my degree while I was doing that, and then also got to see some awesome parts of the Balkans, and I love fitness, so it allowed me to do a lot of hiking, a lot of skiing, a lot of trail running and stuff. So yeah,
did you do
take advantage of
Did you do a DanCon out there? The DanCon?
I didn't. I did not.
Oh man,
I did that. Yeah.
I did two. I did two out there. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, I love working with different militaries. I think that's probably the best thing about that contract and just the NATO mission in Afghanistan. Like, I'm not very pro NATO, but it does allow us the privilege of meeting an Englishman. Why do you guys carry this silly weapon? Why do you guys wear this silly hat? Like, you're wearing shorts, bro? Dude, what the hell? I wish I could wear shorts. And I think that's great. It definitely broadens your spectrum of just talking to these people. And then you hear their opinions, too. Like, when I met an Austrian guy who learned to speak English because of Family Guy.
Yeah, it's amazing what you learn from a lot of the foreign countries, foreign services.
But it's definitely an amazing thing, man. I definitely no regrets. It is
none at all.
It is unfortunate though that every contractor, whether they're a trigger puller or they're the service, the laundry attendant supervisor for KBR, is a Blackwater contractor according to your average BuzzFeed writer, if that makes sense. I do think that's a very unfortunate stigma.
completely. It's every you say security contract and it gets thrown into this one singularity, and that's definitely not the case on both sides.
Yeah. I definitely. So there's definitely a major, and that's the thing too, is when they do that, I think it dilutes guys like y'all, and because I view Blackwater as the biggest scapegoat for the United States government ever, because I find the way a lot of things are handled by the government, and it was projected onto Blackwater as like, see, look, we're doing the right thing. We're accountable. Our guys are accountable. Look, and I'm like, bro, come on, man. Like the Battle of Haditha in 2004, when what those Marines did, and I don't know, because once again, we weren't there. We don't know what those Marines experienced, so it's a little bit, you want to walk the mile in their shoes, because. But at that same notion, no one ever talks about that, but they always talk about Nazareth Square, and I hate that, man. And I've talked to 2 other Blackwater guys about it. Both of them have voiced their distaste. One gave one accord of it, and he wasn't there. From a guy he worked with. And said that it was a setup. The other guy, just said someone got spooked. But I definitely think that's a story, because in that movie, The Shadow Company, and this is what I'm trying to get. We cannot talk about the war on terror without talking about guys like you, contractors and stuff like that. It's amazing how. Right now, they're such an integral part to the military mission and the combat mission and training and all this stuff. And it's crazy. We can't even mention the war without mentioning Blackwater. And to be able to talk to someone from that era is pretty substantial. I'm truly, truly grateful. I think this group is truly grateful to listen to that.
Yeah, no. One of the things that I always found interesting about that time frame was that when things popped off, we had great guys like Frank Gallagher and Frank Rincon and a lot of solid guys who had vast knowledge of things, but overall, there was still a lot of OJT, if you want to call it. We were learning constantly when we got in country and evolving in regards to the ROEs and what was a threat, what wasn't a threat. And I think when you go from not knowing anything and having a very loose control, where you're seen as cowboys, and then all of a sudden, particularly that contract where, the State Department contract, you have this enormous amount of control and micromanaging that is coming down on you. I think a lot of things get lost in the middle, where you have people who are setting rules and or the ROEs, and they have no concept of what's going on the ground. And I think that was one of the the most detrimental things to that contract at that time.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate because, and this is something we can even equate to possibly use of force by law enforcement, and whether you're, a Blue Lives Matter, or you're the most anti-cop person, there's definitely, there's always that talk of use of force, which is a good conversation to have. It's just hard to have because people get so emotionally invested. And to me, it's kind of crazy how the ROE just always shifts. It constantly is a ever-changing thing. And I have buddies there now in Iraq and Afghanistan on the military side and on the on the private side that are telling me how the ROE has changed from their first deployments in their earlier years to a more aggressive when they were to oppose to 2013, 2014, and like I was an aviation guy, and they were telling the pilots and whatnot, like, hey, if they're in a compound, you can't mess the compound up. To even talking to guys in Iraq 2009, 2010, like, yo, if they're in a compound, light that compound up. We don't care. So it's constantly ever-changing ROE, and even it's crazy sometimes. Like the ROEs in the States are a lot more loose than the ROEs in Iraq and Afghanistan. And it's a crazy. It's just crazy, But and then people want to get on their high horse and I think it's an ego stroking thing. Maybe it's these white knights on social media that want to talk about all their tactic training from James Yeager and whatnot. But I don't know. It's a lot of things, man. It's a crazy thing. And like I said, I'm really glad to have someone who was there in the earlier time of it to be able to discuss it,
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, the easiest way, it's talking about like not having very loose ROEs or not knowing what was a threat, what was a threat. I remember the first day I arrived in Iraq, and the team that escorted me back to the green zone picked me up, and we get in the vehicle, they give me a weapon, and we're rolling out of BIOP. And they're like, yeah, if you see a car that's rolling up quickly, it's a threat, so call it out. And as soon as we get out of the gate, literally every car that's coming up is rolling so fast. So I'm like, a threat. They're like, no, it's not a threat. Okay. And another car, threat, and no, it's not a threat. And eventually you're able to discriminate what's a threat and what's not a threat. But when you first get there, I mean, everything, it's just chaos. And, I think a lot of people, again, just don't understand that concept. They think that it's, black or white, and there is no black or white in a combat zone.
There's definitely not, because I think, and now this is reverting back to cinema, and in the movie Black Hawk Down, when the gentleman sees a woman and I think they did it in American Sniper as well, the use of kids and women and people you would normally view as non-combatants taking up arms. Now, what's the moral gray area? Is she just going down to pick up a weapon? Or is she going to use it to fight? And like a lot of people, because I've never been in a situation like that, and I know probably 98% of our population hasn't. So it's this fake moral high ground a lot of people project onto like the people who are A, doing it, or B, signed up to doing it, or C, going to do it. And they want to project it onto those type of people, and I find it disgusting, to be honest, but to be fair, no one really cares about what I find disgusting, so.
Yeah, I feel you on that one.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But I guess that's why we do these podcasts, and we get guys like you, your story out there, and was contracting your first combat deployment, or did you go because I know you're technically a peacetime Marine. But what does that even mean?
Yeah, I mean that definitely was the first time I was being shot at. Yeah. While in the what was interesting to me is while I was in the when I was in the Marine Corps, I was on float, and the two embassies were bombed, and I remember pulling into the Mediterranean as that was happening and hearing, and I'm like, oh shit, man! As a Marine, you're like, damn, you're kind of excited, but nervous at the same time because now you're getting ready to maybe be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You get to play a little bit. But you know, they for whatever reason they decided not to send us to deal with that situation, which I'm kind of glad. I think really anything happened afterwards, and ended up going to Albania, and they evacuated the embassy there, and we secured the embassy. But I guess there was a lot of intel going on in regards to, at the time, what was just called Islamic Jihad, and so we were there protecting the embassy for a few months, and that was as crazy as it got for me in the Marine Corps. So yeah, my first experience was being shot at, or pulling up beside a car and knowing this could be my last day was in Iraq, and that learning curve, was spiked high. So it was you either learn quickly or you didn't make the cut. And I loved it, man. I thought it was some of the most rewarding work I've ever done in my entire life. I worked beside some of the greatest guys I've ever known. I said Frank Gallagher, Matt Marshall, a lot of just guys I learned so much from that were amazing dudes.
It's definitely amazing to, because that's something I always thought about in the 03, 04, 05, and I've never really got answers because the only people I talked to from Blackwater were Desert Storm guys, older gentlemen, so they had a little bit of combat, right. And I knew one of those guys, he was in Desert Storm and he was in Mogadishu, so he was actually not in the Battle of Mogadishu, but he was there, and he's pretty transparent about his half-ass combat experience that he talked about over there, so I take everything what he said pretty factual. But it's amazing that we had, in the 03, 04, 05 early wars, that we had guys like you who didn't have combat experience, essentially, and then getting thrusted into a combat zone. Like, how many of you guys, or depending on when you went, actually had the experience of combat before you went to, like, I wouldn't imagine many, I knew there was a lot of cops with Blackwater, or not with Blackwater, but with Dynacorps. Dynacorps are very friendly, like PSD teams and stuff. They had a lot of cops. But I always thought about that, like how we had these guys over there, and yeah, they could have, like Eric Prince doesn't really talk about his combat experience as a SEAL because I don't think he has any, and like, and I'm not knocking the guy at all whatsoever. He can probably outshoot, maneuver, and out-PT a lot of people who claim to be quotation mark shooters, but there wasn't much going on in the 90s, like the peace. There was a lot of just peacekeeping and humanitarian during the Clinton years before the wars broke out.
Yeah, right. No, there were a lot of so I don't know if it was you can call it whatever you want, fate, destiny, all the stars aligning, but at least with my experience, I had, there were guys who, I had an older gentleman who definitely came from that Vietnam era. I met a lot of guys who have been on some really top-notch Tier 1 teams, and, the experience they brought to the table, the maturity, I think, was a big aspect of it. And a few guys who had been in for lack of a better term, skirmishes.
Yeah.
But I don't think, just off my own thoughts, I can't think of anyone who had been in like real war or what we were experiencing at that time, and everybody was kind of learning, but a lot of guys brought some solid experience to the table. whether that was through extreme training or, because of whatever unit they were in. Also just their ability to, their confidence in their own ability and to be calm in the situation, that maturity. I think maybe, I definitely met guys who had been with the SEAL teams in Panama, like you said, Desert Storm, the Balkan Wars in Bosnia Herzegovina, guys a number of guys, Mogadishu, a couple guys who were actually on the Blackwater down, the Somalia incident. So a lot of guys who had been shot at least, and they understood that concept of, shit's getting ready to get crazy. We just lucked out. I mean, then you had guys like myself who we didn't have that experience, but we had enough faith in the guys who did and maturity to deal with it.
I think in anything you do in life, you're only, and we've been pretty cliche with old sayings today, but might as well keep it going, is you're only as strong as your weakest link, and you're only as good as your team, stuff like that. And that's not a contracting thing. I think that's just a life thing, if you're in any sort of team environment, like I did firefighting for a while, and, some days you had the A-team with you, and you're like, man, we can go into a multiple-story building, fire going out all four sides and multiple floors, and we got this because the A-team was here. And then you got some teams where it's like, man, I hope we don't even have an automatic alarm right now. I don't know if we'd be able to freaking figure that one out. So,
and I think you just kind of hit on something. The A team and we'll call it the C team maybe. Again, my experience during that time frame is you always had solid A-type guys who were bringing 150% every single second, not just day, but every single second of their time there. And if you fell short of that, you were gone. And that's one of the things I loved about that leadership during that time frame is that if you didn't put in, you were done. And I think that when you have such an intense situation with such an intense mission, it just breeds greatness. That's the only thing I can kind of chalk it up to.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. Adversity either breaks people, I personally feel, or it breaks, I guess there's another cliche saying, it either brings the best out of you or it shows the worst out of people. And that's just life, man. So I think that's a decent segue into, as you were saying earlier, your next mission, your next objective, whatever you want to call it, is building yourself up and bringing out the best out of you after your, I don't want to say struggles, but your shades of adversity. So we got about 10 minutes left. Why don't you dive into that for a little bit more and, talk about, what you plan on doing throughout the run, are you stopping anywhere, instrumental into your upbringing with contracting and just life in general. I know you said was it San Diego to Virginia Beach again?
Yes, San Diego or Virginia Beach, yeah.
Also, especially with all the SEAL guys, SEAL guys who were with Blackwater, pretty monumental spots. I guess obviously Virginia Beach isn't Norfolk, but it's close enough. And San Diego and Coronado, but close.
Yes, definitely both of those are you know, uh, the hallmark duty stations for SEAL teams. Also, it's Virginia Beach is close to Moyock, the home of Blackwater.
Yeah.
Um, so there, I someone told me there are no coincidences in life, and at first I'm like, yeah, whatever. But then I started to see that, and some of as this idea to run across the U.S. Evolved to me, and I started putting pencil to paper or text to technology. I started to see the things that I had put down were symbolic of a lot of things I didn't realize, or didn't have the subconscious or conscious awareness of that I was doing that. So yeah, I kind of give you a little more about me. I said I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, to a broken family. Not that my childhood was more horrible than anyone, but just kind of one of those kids where I was left alone, spent a lot of time in the woods, so I got to hike and play outdoors. So my spark for being active kind of came at an early age. I remember seeing a story of Terry Fox, and Terry Fox is a Canadian who lost his leg due to cancer. And Terry woke up one day and said, "Hey, I'm going to run across Canada from east to west to raise money and awareness for cancer research." And I believe during that, he did not finish his journey, but during that race, he covered majority of Canada, but he was pulled off of the run due to illness and eventually died a few months later. Whatever reason, that story just kind of hit me as a kid, and all my heroes, I guess you will want to call them, have always been runners or free spirits like Prefontaine and Billy Mills, who was another Marine. And so I've just always had this desire to run, and I've enjoyed running. Fast forward to now, I went through some hardships, like I said, pretty much hit my rock bottom. There were some points in my life, I was homeless for a little bit of time, actually, some substance abuse, and I've lost everything that I valued and loved in this world. And eventually I got the help and woke up. And so it kind of re-sparked that, or reignited that spark to do something and challenge myself, be better than what I am. Kind of live that, for lack of a better term, that marine concept. Live for something greater, higher purpose, and to be your best self every day. So I decided I'd run across the U.S., San Diego to Virginia Beach, like you mentioned. I'm going to do, like I said earlier, 47 days. I also partnered with a program called Project Motive.org, which is another veteran who's helping to inspire people to accomplish their ultimate dreams. Anyway, having gone through the struggles I've gone through and gotten help, I continue to see not just veterans, but contractors who lose the struggle and end up taking their own life. And it really hurts me, man. Because I know what it's like. And I know it's stuff that we don't talk about, especially as guys, stuff that we don't want to talk about. but it's all stuff that can be fixed.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'm trying to do my small part. So I'll start out May 1st. I'll take off from San Diego, and I'll end in Virginia Beach June 16th.
Are you gonna be filming it? I'd love to see you, do a vlog. There's a lot of vlogging done on YouTube, and a lot of it is just douchey celebrities just looking how awesome my life. I think it'd be great if you could even upload like 5 minutes a day of you just maybe a thought. A former, I think, well, he got out as a gunny, but he was my staff sergeant. He's doing he's riding his bike across the country, and he does like 5 minutes every day, like just what's on his mind. I think that'd be cool if you're doing that, and also it gives people like a connection towards you, like see what you're up to, and
Yes. Yeah. No. My intention is to definitely document it as much as possible. Video, social media, definitely. Hopefully to do some YouTube videos. Should have a website up here running pretty soon in regards to the run and everything. And it's funny. A buddy of mine was like, "Damn, dude, you take a lot of selfies." And I'm like, "Okay, well, sorry, man. It's kind of hard when you're running and it's just you and your dog at this moment when you're training and stuff. It's kind of hard to take a lot of pictures of different stuff." But I'm definitely not one of those guys that want attention. But I think we talked offline. It comes down to I got to draw attention to me to put attention onto a much higher subject. And if that's what I got to do, then that's what I got to do.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with everything you are doing. It's kind of a double-edged sword where you don't want to be over-presenting, like, look what I'm doing, but at the same time you're doing it so people can look what you're doing and say, wow, this guy is running across America, for this X cause. I have $5 extra this month from work. Maybe I can go do that, or even worst case, just, hey, I went to high school with a veteran and I have no idea what the hell's going on. I know he went to Iraq or Afghanistan. Let me just give him a shout and see what he's doing. I don't think a lot of vets, well, there are a lot of vets who want to thank you for your service. Man, like, honestly, I would take just, like, if someone would just be like, hey, man, like, what's going on? How you doing, I don't need someone to thank me for a choice I made, it's just cool to have like a fist bump with someone you haven't seen in like 15 years, I think that's a lot more, because I don't even live in my hometown anymore. So I think, just reconnect with people, I think is more appropriate. But we got about a minute and a half left, man. Is there anything else you want to say towards the group? We'll definitely be bumping this stuff a couple times, man.
I'm not a guy much of words, but I want to say if you can support me or support the cause, and like you said, even if it has nothing to do with money. It's if you can just call somebody, check on them, and let them know that you give a fuck, man. That's all that we want in the end is connection, right? I mean, connection makes the world go round. The more connected we are, the better we understand each other, and the happier we are, I think.
Definitely. No, I'm 100% behind you, man. But that's about all the time we got. Will, thank you for coming on.
No, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate it, man. Seriously, it's an honor.
To the Valhalla Group. If there's one episode you listen to, we do a lot of Q&As and whatnot, and I brought guests on. If you're going to listen to any of them, listen to this one. A lot of us are veterans, a lot of us are veteran contractors, and eventually you got to come home, man. And I think Will is doing the best thing he can to help people come home. But until then, guys, enjoy this episode. Please like, subscribe, share. And also check out Will's fund. He's got GoFundMe and other stuff. But thank you guys. Have a great night.